So here in the US and Canada, we just finished 23 weeks of Trek. How does the final episode stack up? Let's find out. Hey folks, Dan Gunther here. Welcome to my reaction and review to the season finale of Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, That Hope Is You Part 2. As usual, the first part of this review will be spoiler-free, and then I'll get into the spoilers after the warning. So here we are, the season finale of Season 3, and it's been a long time coming. We had 23 weeks of Trek, as I alluded to at the beginning there, here in Canada and in the US at least. It's been a fun road. It was really great to have Lower Decks at the start, and then of course Discovery. This whole chunk of Star Trek has really helped me to get through some of the really weird parts of 2020. And it really was a highlight of that year for me, along with a couple of other things and amongst a sea of lowlights in that year, of course. But Discovery, of course, completely changed course for season 3 and had a completely different premise. And I'm curious also to find out from all of you out there how you felt that worked. I'd love to hear that in the comments. But as for this episode in particular, I think it was a solid ending to the season. There's nothing that was particularly groundbreaking or amazing about it, but at the same time, nothing that I really hated about it. I'm sure there's a lot of nitpickers out there that will find some things they didn't like, and I have some quibbles here and there. But for the most part, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was very solid. I have to, as usual, praise a lot of the acting choices by the performers in this episode. Some really great stuff by the main cast as well as some of the guest stars and guest performers as well. So yeah, really solid, really great stuff. I recently took a look at Jessie Gender's take on this episode, and I'm agreeing with a lot of what she had to say. I kind of wish I had a hotter take here, like she said. But yeah, I didn't hate it. I didn't absolutely completely fall in love with it, but it was definitely a very satisfying conclusion. There were definitely moments where I was really enthralled and really excited and cheering about what was going on. So yeah, I'll talk about those on the other side of the spoiler warning, but suffice it to say, this is definitely a solid ending to the season. Definitely check it out if you haven't. And it leaves me excited for where Discovery is going in the future. So yeah, with that, I guess I'll go into the spoilers now. So if you haven't watched the episode, you may wish to click off here. So these final 3 episodes of the season have kind of been one continuous story, and this one caps that off. There's some interesting parallels I noted between this episode, the end of season 3, I should say, and the end of season 2 of Discovery, in that the main villain, of course, who must be overcome in this episode is Osira. And we didn't really even get a mention of Osira until about halfway through the season. And this really reminded me of Control in season 2, how, there was not much of a mention of Control, and then it gets mentioned offhand as this threat assessment program, and then by the end it's the big baddie that must be overcome. So it's an interesting formula that they're following in that, it is a cohesive story throughout the season, but a lot of the elements that come together for the final part of the story don't get introduced until partway through, and so it feels a little disjointed that way, not in a bad way. I'm not saying that as a negative. I'm just saying it's interesting that these seeds aren't planted earlier on. We do have the mystery of the burn, of course, carrying through the entire season, and with some initial trepidation as to what caused the burn. I feel like they do enough of a bit of a wallpaper of technobabble over it in this one, and, I see what you're doing there, Star Trek. I see what you're doing. But at the same time, I felt it worked where they're talking about the subspace resonance effects of dilithium and how it propagates through subspace. Okay, I can kind of give you that. All right. A little bit hand-wavy on the science-y stuff there, but they put in a better effort than I thought they were going to with the initial revelation that it was Su'Kal that caused the burn, but I still appreciated where they went with it, and I can see where they're going, and I can accept that. I like it. Speaking of Su'Kal, however, Bill Irwin puts in an incredible performance here. I really feel like his performance as Su'Kal is one of the top highlights of this episode, and the raw emotion that he portrays and the kind of childlike innocence, but also this deep well of emotion that the years of isolation have created. Just an incredible performance, and I think he really does a great job of making that part of the episode very real and very compelling. And his scenes with Doug Jones as Saru, who again is always incredible. I think those are really some great acting highlights of this entire season of Star Trek for sure. I also appreciated the scenes with Adira and Gray, and I kind of called it that when Gray went down with Adira to the holographic environment, that he would get kind of a personification, a hollow body as well. So that was fun. I'm curious to see where they're going to go from here. I was kind of thinking, like, we're past the 29th century. Does Discovery have any mobile holographic emitters aboard like the Doctor has? Maybe send one of those down and slap it on him before he beams up. That, a holographic body. That would be kind of cool, but that's kind of left to see how we deal with that. I'm assuming in season 4. I'm hoping Gray sticks around, and it sounds like that's where they're going. It sounds like that's what's going to happen, and I'm really excited for that, for more exploration of that relationship. That was pretty cool. So meanwhile, back on Discovery, of course, Burnham has expelled Stamets from the ship, and he's no longer in play, and he's not happy about it. I was glad to see that kind of lingering. I like that he's still upset about that and not forgiving Burnham immediately for that. It feels very real. I don't know if that's going to be something they play with next season or not, but it hurt that Stamets was so hurt by what Burnham did, even though ultimately it was necessary, and it did work out. We luckily had Book able to work the spore drive as well, which I appreciated. I thought that was a nice setup from early on, that he has this ability to communicate with strange and different life forms. I would have maybe appreciated if they knew when they were writing it that this is where it was going, that maybe there was something more peppered in episodes before, where like this was a theory that had occurred to them and they were going to do tests on it to see, or something like that. As it stands, it's fairly well set up, and it follows based on what we know of his abilities. So I did appreciate that. The discovery of that seemed to come about a little oddly. I did appreciate that. I thought it was a great turn for his character, though. I also really appreciated the scene where Stamets is brought before Admiral Vance, and Vance basically backs up Burnham's choice there as well. I really, really have come to like Vance as a character. I think he's a really good leader, walking that really fine line between what's best for the Federation and his people, and adhering to his morals and values. So this character, I really hope we see more of him in season 4 as well. I think he's been a really great part of this season. I know that early on I kind of questioned his motives a little bit, but he's really come to prove himself as a terrific admiral, I think, and a really good addition to the story. Burnham manages to convince him to let Discovery go, basically to prevent the destruction of the ship. And Burnham saying, I got this, we've got a plan, kind of thing. And, it comes together fairly well. I really enjoyed Aurelio, of course, Kenneth Mitchell. That scene between him and Osira, I think, was incredible. Where Osira just turns on him and chokes him out, basically. That was an incredible scene. I really liked his defiance to her, that there was just a line that he would not cross. And he does become important in that he provides the knowledge that Book would be useful in running the spore drive. I thought maybe he'd play a little bit more in the insurrection against Osira aboard the ship, but that didn't really come to pass. I still really enjoyed, of course, his part in this episode. This whole scene in sickbay, I actually really enjoyed. I thought that was clever, throwing up the quarantine field and taking out the couple of guards who were there. Meanwhile, Osira just seething on the other side of the force field. I thought that was a really great image. So then we get the below decks crew members and the ticking clock of the running out of the life support, which was a little bit contrived, I think, giving them this extended period of time in which to do something. I feel like Osira could have just, opened all the airlocks and completely evacuated the air from the section. But it's convenient, though, of course, to give us the story of them working together to bomb the warp nacelle connection which was good. That was a really good scene. I like the coded message from Burnham to Tilly as well. This whole episode, I think, technically comes together really well. I know some people are going to be up in arms about the huge, vast areas of space where the turbolifts run through, these new fancy 32nd century turbolifts and stuff. And then, of course, the data core, the kind of big set piece, weird location, kind of Galaxy Quest-esque maybe. But it didn't bother me too much. I also was wondering, and I've seen people online kind of speculating about this, we've seen future vessels that have TARDIS-like technology where the inside's bigger than the outside, and I'm wondering if that's been incorporated into Discovery because of this vast area that we see here. I was also thinking it could come in handy with this whole, they're transporting dilithium all over the Federation space and non-aligned worlds and stuff. So I was like, oh, maybe they have a cargo space where they keep dilithium now that's bigger on the inside than the outside. That's kind of clever. I kind of almost want to see that next season now. But you can explain away the visuals of this big, huge, gaping area. But at the same time, it makes for an exciting set piece. It didn't bother me as much as I'm sure it's going to bother a lot of other people out there. Burnham faces off against Osyraa, and they have their big villain fight at the end. I thought this was good. This was a really physical battle. There's one part where Burnham basically throws herself at Osyraa, and I was like, oh, that's a page right out of Kirk's Kirk Fu manual. So that was a lot of fun. Definitely reminded me of that there. But, this is a good physical fight, well choreographed, and of course, Burnham gets shoved into the programmable matter at the end, but blasts her way out and spits up some programmable matter. It was a little odd, but I appreciated it. I liked the, I don't quit kind of thing. I also appreciated another callback to Kirk, of course, the no-win scenario. She says, I don't believe in those. I don't believe in a no-win scenario. So that was a lot of fun. Nice little callback there for sure. All in all, I think an excellent episode. I did like the theme at the end that they brought up with the Roddenberry quote about connectedness and communication among people. The perfect message for what we've gone through collectively as a species over the past year, and a really good reminder of what's important. I feel like connection is kind of going to be the buzzword for 2021 for me, because it's something that's been difficult to do in 2020. Like among my friends and family, I want to make that a thing. And among the viewers of this channel, I think I said, community engagement is kind of something I want to work on a little bit this year. And so that's kind of feeding into that connection thing again. I want to make connections with real people. And, this kind of impersonal Zoom call / watching videos on YouTube thing, it feels very removed sometimes. And I want to see if there are ways that I can break down those barriers and make that communication more meaningful. So that was kind of what was going through my head was that as I was watching the end of this episode and, thinking about Su'Kal and all the things that he went through and the trauma and the pain that set all of this in motion to begin with. I think it's really interesting, the story they've crafted here. Not at all the direction I thought that any of this was going, but I really did appreciate what the writers were trying to say with this story here and what it means for the human condition. Star Trek ultimately is about human beings and the human condition, and I liked that it had something meaningful to say about that here at the end. So the very end of the episode, of course, we get Saru back on Kaminar with Su'Kal. That was a lovely scene calling back to what the mother said in the recorded message about floating him in this body of water on Kaminar during the meteor shower. Just beautiful. I thought that was wonderful. And Burnham is offered command of the Discovery, and she kind of reluctantly, isn't really sure about that, wants to wait for Saru to come back, but Vance says there's no time to waste. We've got all these missions. We've got to transport dilithium around. We're going to try and rebuild the Federation. We need you. I need an answer right now. And she, of course, takes the captaincy, and we finally see at the end of season 3, Burnham as the captain, the kind of promise made in episode 1 of this series when Georgiou said she thought that Burnham was ready for the captain's chair. We finally see that realized here. And I love the note of hope that this ends on. Trill has rejoined the Federation. Ni'Var, the Vulcans and Romulans are considering it. My favorite thing was seeing Sahil again. And Wonderful, wonderful to see him. I love that they brought him back for this, and he's made contact with the Federation, and they're all together. That was terrific. We get everybody in the new uniforms, and the Discovery warps off on her next adventure, apparently being a lithium delivery ship. Not a cliffhanger at the end of the season, which is interesting. A new setup for a new set of circumstances, but not like the Enterprise showing up at the end of season 1, not like going through the wormhole to the future in season 2, but now at the end of season 3, it's just the new status quo and what Discovery's going to be up to now. We have some dangling threads, of course. Saru on Kaminar, we do know he will be in season 4, so, you know, how's that all going to play out? What's his return going to be like? What's his role going to be? Is Burnham going to remain the captain of Discovery, or is that situation going to change? We're not sure, but yeah, I absolutely loved this ending. I loved the note that it left me on. I felt very fulfilled and hopeful for a bright future, which is what Star Trek to me is all about. So if there's some niggling things that I kind of like, well, they were okay, but not wowing me, this ending really uplifted me and got me to that place where I was really happy about how it ended and where it's going from here. So 23 weeks of Star Trek here in North America done. It kind of didn't hit me until right after I finished watching the episode that's it. We've had all these episodes in a row, and now it's going to be a bit of a drought. So that saddened me. I'm going to miss this. It's really helped get through a lot of the tough times in the last year. So yeah, I don't know. How do you all feel about where this is all going? And how do you feel about no Star Trek next week? Which is really sad, but we'll of course continue making videos here on the channel. We've got the Positively Trek podcast that I do with Bruce Gibson. We'll be continuing to cover all of the Star Trek news and interesting discussions and guests. Even though there's no review episodes, our flagship show will still be going strong. We'll have lots to talk about for sure. So yeah, what did you think of the season finale of Star Trek Discovery's 3rd season? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much to the Patreon supporters. Thank you for helping me bring these videos to you. I really do appreciate it. I could not do it without you. Thank you to everyone else who have watched through all of these 23 weeks of Star Trek and even just the last 13 weeks of Star Trek Discovery. It's been a lot of fun. I know I've been a little slow in getting some videos out, but thank you for being patient with me and sticking with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you who watch these videos. But you will see me again soon in the next video. So until then, as always, live long and prosper.